She is the Republican nominee for Florida's 13th congressional district. And she's been out and about, a U.S. Air Force veteran. And I think she terrifies the left because they don't quite know really how to go at her. And I've just noticed that all of the attempts to do hit pieces on her are very awkward, because even the tweets, they're very awkward because they're terrified to hit her. But she joins us now via Skype. And Anna, it's Anna. It's my Ozark coming out because I'm like, Anna. I say milk and pillow too. So please don't judge everybody by me. Anna, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So I know that you've been out, you have not stopped with the campaign and talking to voters and everything else during this pandemic, which is smart because I mean, people still have to vote. And also, the more that we've learned about it, I think the more that people realize it's fine to, obviously you have reasonable concern, but to shut down your entire life and not leave your home and just stay at home, like, in your hobbit hole and not go out and do anything, that's not really the best way to approach this. You were at a rally, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was last night, right? That you had a big rally in Tampa.
Correct. Correct. So actually what I realized is when I saw the BLM marches and when I saw these massive protests that were taking place and the left said it was okay, I said, well, if they're going to protest, then I'm going to protest. So I started doing demonstrations and protests, especially during the lockdown, and I continued forward with that. But yes, we had a massive show of support for the president in Tampa yesterday, and Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle came down, not just to help me with my race, but also to help, I think, bring out the base here in Tampa. We're seeing a lot. We're seeing a lot of the Democrats not wanting to debate. I'm one of them. My opponent will not debate me. And I think that that's their strategy. They're trying to hide from the American people because they don't want to hear the truth. And the truth is that we're winning and that they've been lying and they're getting caught lying on a national scale.
I have to say that if I were your opponent and his name, if people don't know who's running against her, he at one point I did present himself as a Republican, but he's been a Democrat, really, let's be real, his entire life. Charlie Crist. I wouldn't want to debate you either if I were him. The optics just on their face are bad. I mean, he's an old dude who's been in government for like longer than any of us have been alive. And he's going up against someone who served her country and is continuing to serve her country. Not good for him.
Absolutely not. And I can tell you that he really has. He's been a Republican, an independent, and a Democrat. But really where my concern and what my big issue with him is that this is a man that's trying to say that he wants to represent the veteran community. Yet he's never served this country. He doesn't have respect for veterans. And actually, as Florida governor, he cut veteran benefits by the millions of dollars. And so we're talking about someone that's not only voting in lockstep with Nancy Pelosi, has no respect for the Second Amendment, but then you're not going to debate me. I mean, isn't that the platform of the Democrat Party, that they're open to, welcoming women and welcoming diverse opinions? It's a complete lie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, where is the discussion? Where is the debate? Because that has been that's one of their tenets. You must hear the women, believe all women, and must talk to women. Well, here they're working to shut you out. And I don't even know how he is still, and I don't even want to focus on his failure of a record because everybody's so familiar with his failure of a record. But you've gotten a lot of attention in Florida and you've really struck a chord with a lot of voters. Your message has really resonated because there are a lot of people who run for office as Republicans who come up from nothing. I'd never ran from office, but I identify with people who raised themselves up by their bootstraps, something AOC doesn't think is possible because she's taking it literally, and made something of themselves. And there's just that animating spirit of liberty that resonates with people who go out and they work hard and they make it happen and they want to enjoy the results of all of that hard work. And that's been your background. That's resonated with a lot of people. Talk to me about kind of the changing, not demographic, but the changing tone of the demographic. I think the latest poll shows Trump up 3 right now against Biden in Florida. And for the first time ever, Republicans have a massive amount of Hispanic support, which Hispanics are leaving the Democrat Party in droves. And I think it comes down to, like I just said, that message and that making it on your own. And that's the background that you share also.
Absolutely. So actually, the reason why I got politically active is because I was asked to take over as a national outreach director with Turning Point USA. I turned down a seat in medical school, and The reason I bring that up, though, is because we know that the Democrat Party survives on identity politics. So what's unique about me as a candidate and really as a Republican and a conservative is that I'm half Mexican. And that seems to bother the heck out of every single liberal reporter I've ever spoken to. They always try to say, well, you don't look Hispanic. Well, I'm sorry, am I supposed to wear a sombrero to look Hispanic enough for you? I mean, ultimately, my life experiences has been everything to really provide me with the foundation for why I fight for and believe in what I believe in. My mom walked home from an abortion clinic. I'm pro-life. I grew up within the welfare system. I think the best thing that you can do for an individual is get government out of your life. All right. We have a unique opportunity to where you can be born into nothing and work your way very hard up the chain and basically accomplish anything. And they don't want to hear that argument. They want to suppress our voices. In 2016, I can tell you that the Mexican American demographic, over 63% supported Hillary Clinton. What we're seeing now is over 53% of Hispanic Americans supporting President Trump, and it is the largest voting minority in U.S. history. That's a huge deal, and that's just on people that are reporting. That's not even taking into account that ghost vote. So I'm hopeful. I believe that we're fighting for liberty. I do believe that there's a lot on the line here. And I do believe that if this seat wasn't so important, then why is it that big tech is censoring us? And not just me. There's two other candidates in Tampa Bay. We're all being censored on Twitter, and the local networks have been told not to host debates with us. So I think that this is strategic, but we have the grassroots game. We're appealing, and we're going to kick their teeth in.
See, and this is where it's so important to have that digital discussion, that have all of these digital outlets as well, because local networks now are even being told not to. And I've seen some of the suppression. Well, I've seen people, for instance, like share different videos and different screenshots of how like certain of your tweets, particularly if it's anything that relates to fundraising, it won't come up in Twitter searches, which is one of the ways you can tell if you're being shadow banned or your things are being suppressed. And so that actually, I mean, that legitimately has been happening to you. Which is incredibly frustrating. And that's why I'm so glad that we have all of these digital avenues out there. When this is such a weird, 2020 is such a weird election period. How are you dealing with, because we were just talking about, you had the rally yesterday and you've been continuing the campaign. How have you approached reaching out to voters during this really weird time where you have national unrest and also everyone is terrified to shake hands with everyone else because now everyone is on my same germaphobe level?
I did it through my phone, and I know that sounds crazy, but during the initial lockdowns, I realized that people were on their phones, they were on their computers to get information. So where a lot of candidates and campaigns were pulling back their outreach, I jumped into it 110%. And I started sending out the constant emails. I started sending out my views. I was making videos and that direct engagement. And what I realized is, even with some of the older voters, obviously being very respectful. And if they are, with a pre-existing condition, I don't want to get them sick. But what I started to do is I would still door knock, but I would sign to them through the window and I'd point at my flyer and then I'd point at myself and I would leave it on their car. And so I never stopped. And I think that that's important because right now what we're seeing is it was COVID lockdowns, it was the riots, then we had a hurricane in Florida. And so there's been a lot thrown at us, but I do believe that this election cycle is that important. So we might not have the advantage, but we don't need it. We're finding out other ways to campaign. And frankly, I feel like 1776, they didn't meet the British on the field head on. They came up with guerrilla tactics, and that's exactly what we're doing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And you have to with this, especially just to get around so much of this, which is awesome to see. Your campaign has been so well received in Florida that I think it's a lot of people. There are people who think that you're like running in their area. I've actually had people send me like messages and say, "Oh, I'm pretty sure this young lady's running in my area." And I'm like, "No, you're in Arizona. No, she's running in Florida. Although if you were a Democrat, I'm sure you could totally vote. If she were a Democrat, you could totally vote twice in those areas." That's kind of unusual especially for a first time. I almost, this is not as an insult, politician, as someone who's running for office for the first time, it's kind of unusual to have the national reach that you have established with your candidacy. How has that been, and what has that done to help you statewide or in your district?
Well, I can tell you that if I was a Democrat, I would be bigger than AOC and any other Democrat running because of the fact that in the primary election alone, I was completely locked out of the Washington, D.C. establishment. They did not want me to win. And I was able to bring in over $1.1 million on small dollar donations, meaning my average donation was $20. To put it in perspective, AOC only ever raised $300,000. And I had donors from every single state in the United States, every single U.S. territory to include Washington, D.C. So that is a national race. Ultimately, I can tell you that it has been effective because I'm having people that might not be in my district, but they're calling their family members here and telling them to vote. And it's working because I am being censored. But I can tell you that, moving forward and everything that we're seeing for this election, it does concern me because as someone who is trying to bring a good message, which is we need lower taxes, it's okay to keep your guns, that we should be fighting for the Constitution, and that socialism is not good. One of the most alarming things I've witnessed is Diego Aria, who was the former United Nations Security Council president, had posted my campaign in Spanish. He said literally like 5 words. It was basically Ana Paulina Luna's running in Florida 13 as a Republican, or, it was simple. And Twitter kicked him off for that and marked my Twitter account as a spam account. So we are seeing censorship of people that are hoping to do good for this country, but that just don't agree with the socialist agenda. So, I mean, with what you're doing and really getting this message out there, I applaud you because it's something that we will have to take head on. And it's, we can't any longer just be quiet on this issue. You have to get involved. And if you don't, we're in big trouble.
Yeah. And for people who may not be familiar with, we're talking with Ana Paulina Luna, Florida's 13th congressional district, with her policy positions. I mean, it's pretty much the same as POTUS. So, fewer regulations, get the government out of the way for business so business can create jobs instead of government micromanaging everything, lower taxes. Oh my gosh, if you said abolish the IRS, I would go to Jared's Jewelers and get a Ms. Paw and I would send you half because we would become best friends just then. So, I mean, it's pretty much, no pressure. It's pretty much, exactly on par with what we've seen with the administration.
I mean, it's 100%. I feel like that comes from common sense. You'd figure that there'd be more legislators that would want that. But unfortunately, you realize that a lot of times in Washington, D.C., people are bought and controlled by the time they get in. Right. And if I can just share a real quick story, as a first-time candidate, there's no how-to guide on running for office, right? You just figure it out. And I remember being in D.C. and I met with a lobbyist, and this guy was telling me that he was having issues with President Trump taxing some of their goods that were foreign-made auto parts. And I wasn't reacting to him because I frankly support what President Trump is doing. Why are we not bringing back American manufacturing, right? That's what we should be doing in the United States, not funding places like China. And he goes, you're great. You're exactly what the party needs. You're innovative. You're young. He's like, but, before you're elected, I can get you a really good deal on a brand new Corvette. And he's like, and it's totally legal. And I looked at him and I thought about that. And I'm thinking, if he's doing it to me, he's doing it to other people too. And I said, well, with all due respect, sir, I drive a Jeep. No, thank you. But that happens on a national scale and I'm sure to other extremes. And it's just the fact of the matter. We need to make sure that people are not career politicians, that they're independently funded, and that they're working for the American people.
Right, exactly. Ana Paulina Luna, find her on Twitter and Parler and Facebook, Real Ana Paulina. That is her handle on Twitter. And you can also go and voteanapaulina.com is her website. And you can read about everything from her time in the Air Force and everything else. Ana, it's always so good to see you, and congrats on all the successes so far. And we're going to be watching the race from here in Dallas, Texas, and wishing you all the best. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Of course, take care.